If you're tired of the standard business and marketing fundamentals, frameworks, and funnels, you need a little mischief. Get ready to turn up the volume on the CEO MISCHIEF Maker podcast, where you access conversations with seasoned business owners who have smashed through mindset barriers, innovated the standard boring business and marketing playbooks, and executed future-paced strategies with bleeding-edge tools and tactics to micro-fail their way into massive success and growth. We are Mindset Impact Strategic Catalysts helping innovative entrepreneurs focus. We are CEO MISCHIEF Makers. Ready to make a little mischief? Welcome back to the conversation. It is Wednesday and we get to talk about impact and innovation. And if you've listened to this conversation before, any of my conversations before, you know that I don't define innovation the same way most people do. I really look at innovation as the non-trackable, measurable things that we bring to our positions, our companies, our experiences. And I've found recently that actually has a word attached to it. I'm so excited because I'm writing a book about CEO MISCHIEF Maker, and I found this word, and it's called tacit knowledge. So look that up, TACIT, if you're listening to me. MKJ here, and I get to welcome Melanie Asher back to the conversation with me. You ready to tackle impact and innovation, Melanie?
I am, and I absolutely love your new word.
I love it. I'm an absolute word hog. I love alliteration. I love all those things. So let's get into that impact. So there must be a particular type of business, or not must, probably is a particular type of business that you like to serve. What who are you trying to impact in this particular phase of your life?
I typically work within the B2B space and also surprisingly nonprofits. When I work with them, they are usually between the $500,000 and about 20 million range, and they have one of two problems. They either know that their messaging does not work, but they don't know what to do about it, or in their mind, they have tried everything for marketing and nothing works. They've worked with everybody in marketing and no one can deliver results. That's what I'm typically brought in. I'm like, great, let's figure out why.
And now you have all that crap you got to deal with from all the things that those agencies didn't know what the hell they were doing, and they were awful, and do you believe they did this? And I've had that a couple of times where, do you believe they did this? And I'm like, well, that's kind of what they were supposed to do. So
yeah. And sometimes it's that. Sometimes it is genuinely they hired a bad firm or whatever the case may be. Yeah. Sometimes it's whoever was in charge of managing them did not know what, how, or why to articulate actual goals or objectives to them, and it wasn't aligned with company strategy. And if it's not aligned with company strategy, you'll never get any results. In the history of digital media, no company, including Starbucks, who is within 6 degrees of separation of every person on the planet independent of technology, has not been able to attach revenue to a like, share, or comment. So chances of you doing it are incredibly unlikely. Not saying it can't be done, but let's set some realistic expectations here and realize that our expectations need to be in alignment with our company goals.
Yes, absolutely. Again, preaching to the choir. Thank you. All right, so let's now go to innovation, because you dropped some amazing bombs in our last episode on Monday when we talked about mindset that lend themselves perfectly to what we're going to talk about here. And my friends, if you're listening to this and you have not listened to the first episode that Melanie and I did together, please do that after you finish this one, because you will see the thread that we are walking along. You talked about taking companies. I told a story about a gentleman who runs a company of 800 employees, talking about expecting them to send birthday cards to their clients, and he wasn't acknowledging their birthdays at all, and he was wondering why they weren't doing it. And I just pointed out that fact. Consistency of what you think is important, they obviously will think is important. So you must not think it's very important. But you also brought up the idea that it doesn't, I was put in mind of, I think Alice in Wonderland, the unbirthday, right? Yeah. That's, you don't have to send them on the birthday. You can have a more unique experience for your customers and employees. And that is innovation. And the things that we bring to our company that are not part of the standard, send a birthday card on their birthday, send a holiday card on their holiday. It really is a unique representation of it. And so that must have come from somewhere for you to share with some of your clients. How do you innovate your space being a fractional CMO? How are you bringing that personal experience to what you do?
That is a great question. Marketing is about being remembered. If your audience cannot remember you, they cannot repeat your message. And if you are not memorable, you will never get the job. It's not about how many social media posts you put out in a week. It's not about sending or not sending a birthday card. It's about what is memorable. There was a time in marketing when you only needed to have between 8 and 15 touch points with a prospective client to close a sale. That has almost tripled in today's market, no matter what your business or what your industry is. Let's then add on that every individual person is hit with between 30,000 and 60,000 messages per day. How is your one touch point, or even, hey, let's be super optimistic and say your 60 touch points with this one prospective client, how do they stand out when every individual person is bombarded with a sea of, we'll go with the low number, we're being super optimistic, 30,000 messages in a day.
How did you get that, though? So with that idea and being memorable, where in your previous experience that was an aha for you that you carried through into what you do now? Same with the birthday cards, same with all those things. Where did you experience that?
I'm not sure where I made that shift. I do recall that I caught on pretty early that marketing is not a collection of tactics, but it's actually more about the psychological impact and the psychological effect. So how do colors, how do design, how does experience subconsciously impact the conscious mindset? So I've always done a lot of work with understanding the psychology of people and then the sociological impact of an entire market. Yeah. And when you take that approach, you're shifting from, oh, this individual postcard or this individual social media post. And you begin to create and influence and impact and create memorable nuggets that your audience is like, oh, I remember that. I forgot about them, but yeah, they're familiar to me. And then as marketing and technology have evolved, that psychological impact and influence and things you need to do needed to become what I call and explain as bilingual. There's a psychological and sociological impact, and now you also have to communicate with tech. And in reality, in its most simplest form, I don't care what tech you're dealing with, everything goes back to zeros and ones. Everything. Tech does not understand, well, I meant this. Well, I really meant that. Why didn't it get it? It's not a 0 or a 1. It takes what you say or do and translates it into those zeros and ones. So in order for your marketing to be effective, it needs to be bilingual. It needs to communicate with the tech in a way that the tech can receive it, and in a way that the marketing and your market wants to receive it. You and I can sit here and chat, and you're going to get a vibe from me. You're going to be able to see my facial expressions and see my body movements, and you're going to get a vibe. You're going to get a feeling. Tech doesn't do that.
Well, there's a new one on the market called Pi.ai, and it's supposed to be empathetic, and I saw a demonstration of it the other day, and it's like really freaky empathetic. Freaky.
Yeah.
Not that it feels, it still doesn't feel, but it's been trained on that EQ, that emotional, that empathy, and it's freaky. Sorry.
It is freaky, and we are making a lot of progress in that way, but it is still technology.
Yes.
And at its core, it still goes down to zeros and ones. So you're never really getting rid of the human element. We're just adding another dimension or another option for how to better connect with our audience. And so to me, I guess the innovation is I can see the connections between the tactics and how those actually influence the results that a company gets. And that is what I found is where the powerhouse is in generating results.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that also impact innovation, or at least the ways that we have tried to find to have people stand out and showcase these other parts of ourselves, are all the other like personality tests we take, right? We've got the DISC, we've got Myers-Briggs, we've got, you know, all the, what's the emotional one that, I don't remember the name of it anyway. It was like you're a number 8 or a number 2 or anyway. Yeah, all these different personality tests. Human design, that's a big one right now. I'm actually, that's a pretty cool one. But all of our previous experiences impact what we do and what we bring to the table. And you're right, there's a feeling, there's a sense. And usually we can tell immediately whether we get along with someone or we don't, and if they're rubbing us wrong. I learned way back in high school, the people who rubbed me wrong are the people who were more like me. I gotta tell you, I gotta be honest. It's the people who were more like me that were like we were jockeying for the same space. It was like, no, it's mine. No, it's mine. And it not that they were bad or I was bad, but we were jockeying for that same impression we were giving people. And those kinds of things, when I learned that and I stepped aside when I wanted to step aside and let them have that space for a while and then took it over myself, right? That's the way we learn and we grow. Instead of just putting them down. I mean, I did that in high school. I don't do that anymore. Right? I mean, I don't need to be catty, and I'm not in high school. I'm not 16 anymore. Believe me. Actually, coming to the reversal of those numbers. But the whole idea is that personality, those experiences, and the way we interpret them really do bring forth how we impact our businesses, our families, our worlds, and that. The way that you can, and I'm just preaching here, so I'm sorry, let me say this because it's unfolding as I write this book. So the way we can uncover that is to really look dispassionately at those experiences and see how they've actually helped us acquire certain skills or enhanced certain skills that we have. And I'm telling you, if you can do that, if you journal during in the mornings or the evenings, and you look at some of those experiences. I'll give you an example. Mine is my mother graduated high school when I was actually in middle school. She was very young when she had me, and so she didn't finish high school. So she actually graduated high school when I was in middle school. And I looked at that as, wow, that's incredible. I was so proud to actually, in my middle school gymnasium, watch her walk across and get her diploma. I was just so full of pride. And it was a very clear example to me that you can do anything at any age no matter
Yeah.
what's happening around you. And I take that and I still believe it, and I look at everything I do from that lens. So that is part of my innovation.
Yeah.
And so you have experiences. You listening to my voice have experiences. Write them down. See how they've impacted the way you make decisions and the things that you do. So I know just from our conversation before, your psychology that you bring to this comes from your personal experience. And that gives you an incredible edge. Not edge in competition. That's not the way I'm looking at that word. An edge in the way you do things. A lens through which you can view this particular thing that you do uniquely that no one else has. Right?
Exactly. And I love your analogy of the people that you butt heads with the most are the ones that are most like you.
Yes.
I didn't have that awareness until someone pointed it out to me that I was doing that too.
Yeah.
And they're like, so they were just having a conversation and they did a very good job putting a little dig in without ever calling me out directly. And they're like, what I do, and I have found to be really helpful, is when I find myself in that almost jealous, catty, whatever that is, that competitive state, is to step back and say, okay, on some level, I'm feeling threatened. I know my strength. I know my value. And I'm feeling like they could take it away. What do I admire about whatever it is they do or are doing, and look at it from a different lens? And I started doing that. So anytime I would come up against somebody that feeling would arise. And our society does not help this at all. Our society says, women, you must compete against other women. Yes, you can stick together, but ultimately, you need to be catty with each other.
Yeah.
And so I consciously, to this day, I will take a step back and I will say, there is something about MKJ. What is it? And oh, she does X and Y and Z, and I absolutely get it. And I love it, and she's not my competition.
Yes.
She's my ally.
Yes.
Teaming up with her makes us a powerhouse.
Absolutely.
And it's a complete mindset shift, going back to Monday.
See how this works? This is
Yes!
exactly how it works. That's exactly why I have it set up this way. You're right. And when you do that, when you can look at someone that way and that innovation, you can apply it to your business, you now open up the opportunities that you have more than you ever would if you just keep it close to the vest and you just go over here and this is mine. I can't share. This is mine. Oh my goodness, it is such a beautiful world when you, and I know I'm sounding all woo-woo and, going back to the hippie days. I get it, but it's true. And thank you so much, because that strength is what we need to share more than compare.
And in order to get there, it is a conscious, and sometimes it's a physical step back. And it's a reflection of, okay, identifying what you're feeling first. Because until you identify those emotions and those feelings, they can't move through you and they get stuck.
Yes.
So identify your space first. And then reflect on how you've interpreted the other person. And in that reflection is where you're going to find the common ground. Now, common ground does not mean that you're always going to be BFFs with the person. It may truly be you two are just going to forever butt heads. But that you can still create and establish a line of respect. Or at least understanding or compassion.
Yes. Yes.
For that dynamic between you and that other person.
Yes. And it requires that understanding requires self-reflection. You need to know thyself. You need to be not afraid to go to those places and be vulnerable with yourself. And yes, say, yeah, that is kind of, I feel like I'm giving something up. I feel like they're stealing something from me. And, that whole competitive thing. And once you do that, the world again opens up until you get to the next thing. You got to have self-reflection, because you'll never reach the end. I'm sorry.
No,
At
there
least I don't
is no
think
end.
there is no end.
It's the journey, and then when you're a business owner and you've got the whole type A thing going on, you're just like, okay, what's next? What's the result? Okay, what's going on?
Yes, success. Where's the success metric? What am I measuring? Let me get there. Yes, exactly. And we get to tackle that next time. Don't worry, we'll get there.
Okay.
So is there anything else that you can share? I mean, you did it brilliantly. This has been much more of a reflective conversation than most of them. So thank you for that, because that is absolutely necessary. Is there any other innovation that you can give us beyond the unbirthdays, right? Beyond those things that you help people do, and tying it to really the company mission and the persona and all those things, because that's what really gives us no competition, is when we embrace that with our companies.
You ask really good questions. I'm usually really prepared, and I'm like, okay, you're actually making me stop and think here.
Sorry.
How many people do that?
I know. But it's because you're so good, and we've already gone down those roads. So I'm pushing further, because
I know,
really
and I like it. I like it. We're good. Okay, innovation. The biggest thing is I used to describe it as my favorite word to this day is the same word as the average 2-year-old.
Uh-huh.
Why?
No? Oh, I was going to say
Why?
no.
Why?
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 Yes.
And I just love, especially when it's people I'm close with, we'll be having a conversation and I'll just go into why mode. Well, I'll be like, why? 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 And I'll say it in a weird way usually too. And it's not, I don't do it in a sales mode, because in my opinion, that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
Why is about being vulnerable. It's being vulnerable to ask, and it's being vulnerable to answer. And until you have a level of rapport with the person, asking anything more than 2 whys is inappropriate.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's an invasion of privacy. It's an invasion of boundaries. It's almost an attack on the person.
Yeah, right.
But when you have that rapport, just like you just did with me, where, you asked me questions I wasn't thinking that you would ask or that would come up at all. It's like, okay, we have that rapport that I felt safe to hear it and safe to respond.
Okay, hold on. If your mindset was shifted, you were inspired to innovate, and you were spurred into action, don't just move on with your day. Focus, my friend, and take a few minutes to visit CEOMischiefMaker.com to learn more about the value that was shared with you today. Please act now and create some CEO mischief of your own.